I currently find myself on the small island of Gili Meno, just off the coast of Bali in Indonesia, completing a 300-hour advanced yoga teacher training course with High Yoga School. Now, one half of High Yoga School is my guest on the podcast today. Her name is Mona Godfrey. She's an incredibly inspirational teacher with an amazing story who has this incredible ability to weave in really complex philosophical ideas into all of her classes. So I couldn't wait to chat to her. Our chat today really covered everything from finding this Dharma, this purpose, to what yoga truly means for her, to how yoga can shape and move through the seasons in your life with you to help you find this idea of love, of peace, of fulfillment. I loved today's episode so much, and I really hope that you do too. If you hit subscribe, you'll be notified for next week's episode. And if you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate a little love or comment, or maybe even share it with a friend. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome back to Off the Mat podcast. Today I'm here with Mona, beautiful yoga teacher that I am currently training with in Indonesia on this amazing island of Gili Meno. As always, we're going to start with a short grounding meditation led by Mona before we get into the podcast chat. So, over to you, Mona.
All right. So, Christy, if you could just find a seat that's comfortable. And if you're at home, if you're walking, you can do this as well. If you have the opportunity to lie down, you could do it lying down. If you're sat down, you can do it sitting down as well. Wherever you are, just start to bring awareness to your breath. Notice where in the body you can feel the breath. Notice the quality of the breath. And at this stage, if you are able to, if it's safe where you are, to close the eyes if you feel comfortable, maybe even closing the eyes. Now we have a tendency when we're feeling a little bit anxious, if we're doing something out of our comfort zone, or just in day-to-day life, to breathe in the upper cavity of our torso, which can further the stress response. So notice where in the body you can feel the breath. And I invite you to start breathing all the way down into your belly. So whether you're walking, or sitting, or standing, just see if you can feel the breath moving all the way down into your belly. And in fact, if you have your hands free, you can even place your hands on your lower belly. Allow the belly to expand into the hands. So the belly can bellow out. You can visualize a baby's belly, completely relaxed. You can visualize a Buddha belly, soft, relaxed, and allowing the breath to go all the way down into the base of your body. When you empty the breath out, also focus on completely releasing the exhale. So we have a tendency to breathe on top of stagnant breath. So empty and clear the breath entirely out. So you can draw in new energy, new prana, all the way down into the base of the body. This is a nourishing breath that we can return to at any point in the day. In conversation, on our commute home, in preparation for our practice, after a difficult conversation, And when we breathe all the way down into the belly in this way, we are anchoring ourselves. We connect to our roots. See if you can stay with this breath, even as we begin to blink the eyes open.
Thank you so much. What a delightful start.
My pleasure. Just actually grounding myself.
I always say it's like my selfish way to start the podcast because we're always coming from somewhere and moving to somewhere after. And actually, I just feel like every meeting, every conversation that's important should start with something like that because it really just prepares you. So thank you.
Yeah, wouldn't it be amazing if that was just common practice?
Yes.
You got to work before the big meeting. Everyone just did a bit of full yogic breathing.
100%. I remember trying to implement it in some of my old team meetings when I worked in a corporate environment, and people just used to laugh and be like, oh, classic Christy. I'd be like, guys, it works.
Resistance. Yeah.
It works.
I think also you have to, there's two things happening. You're breathing and you're practicing that breath, but part of the softening happens in believing in it. Do you know what I mean? So if you're engaging with it with a certain level of cynicism, I think the softening doesn't really happen.
Absolutely.
I think you have to get people on board first. Be open to
Convert
it.
them.
Yeah.
But try.
Convert them.
One at a time, baby.
Join the cult.
Mona, we always start off the mat by giving everyone their favourite drink, which I'm sure on this whole season in Bali, I think everyone's going to choose a fresh coconut.
Is that what it's been so far? Yeah.
This is the second one, and yes, Caitlin also had a coconut, but it's hard not to.
No,
like, they grow everyone on the island, they're ice cold, fresh. A thing of coconut water is like £4 at home.
Yes,
this is like
it's so
one,
good.
not even £1.
Especially after a morning one in practice, and
There you go.
it's so
Yummy.
good. It's so precious. It's just there are not a lot of things that actually grow on this island, I've learned, but coconut is definitely one of them, and there's just so much abundance in that.
It's like liquid gold. It's just
is
the best.
It's so amazing. Yeah.
We find ourselves on this paradise little island, Gili Meno, which, we've both been around the whole island this morning before this podcast. That's how small it is. It's 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers around the whole thing. Yeah. I want to kind of rewind the clock to when you were here 10 years ago and your first experience of this island and where you were in your life at that point.
Yeah. I was in a very different place, but I was in a very beautiful place. And I think I had no understanding of what was coming, because when I was here, I'd actually just completed my 300-hour training. And I learned all of these beautiful techniques, and I had the luxury of time to actually practice them. Time and space. And at the time when I was here, the island was a lot less built up. There were a lot less people. I was also managing this center during the rain season, and it was very quiet, which I absolutely loved. I would shudder when I saw that someone was coming to stay. I'd be like, oh no, human interaction. And there was no internet, so I had to have, I don't know, like a USB thing that you top up and you plug in, so you're also limited to how much you can use. And so my external output was not great, and the things that I was putting in were really deliberate and really powerful. And I really think that, I think in life you have two major hormonal peaks in your adolescent, and with that hormonal peak you just actually transform and change. People often come into their personality and into their true kind of likes, and they're all over the place as they figure that out. And then the other huge hormonal peak happens to people who are pregnant. They go through this really intense transformation physically, emotionally, and then there's a huge dip. We're not going to talk about that. But in that, you actually change. And I feel that in some sort of way, even though I know it wasn't hormonal, I had that when I was here. I had this complete, through the practices, through this really unique experience of being isolated, which we're not used to, which doesn't present itself so often to us. It's a very kind of unique moment in my life. I completely changed. And a lot of like the veils and the hardness around my heart from my experiences as a child, as an adolescent, softened immensely. And I also started to really truly believe that things were possible for me through this practice. It sounds very woo-woo, and it's sometimes hard to talk about these things because it's hard to find words for our peak experiences and emotionally. You know, I think people write entire books about these moments, but it was a huge peak moment. I will always look back at it so fondly, you know, so fondly. And I also love being alone. I get so much out of solitude. And I live in London now, and
you don't get much of that.
It's rare to get alone time between teaching and students and my family commitments, my commitment to high yoga school. I am in a unique place in my life where I'm constantly needed. And so I definitely like romanticize that time now, but I feel so good to be here and also again be so changed and so transformed.
That was literally going to be my next question. You're now here 10 years, which also 10 years is a really nice round number of time. 10 full years later, it's a whole decade later. And you have 22 yoga teachers here. You said you just completed your 300 hour at the time that you were here, and you're now here sharing and facilitating your first 300 hour teacher training. How does it feel?
It feels like an omen. We're doing this podcast, but I haven't actually talked about this because I've been so busy, and my partner's been busy helping me out, and I've been teaching you guys, but I haven't had a lot of time to process this. But I feel like it's an omen, and it's extraordinary because I went, you know, it feels very circular. I went from being here. It was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life, so special, transformative, and and in deep solitude, and now I'm back with these incredible people and incredible teachers already who are here to also feel the wonder of this land and to take time to be in that solitude. And this is part of the reason we chose this place, because I said I think this will be a nice place for us to get into ourselves. And so then to have in the very same shala these wonderful human beings, many of who I already know from our 200-hour training, doing these practices that I was doing very passionately 10 years ago. And then also to have my family here.
Yeah.
You know, it just feels
full circle.
Yeah, full circle, from solitude to sangha to community, and suddenly all these little villas and bungalows are full and of wonderful people. And I'm not in the shala alone anymore. You know, we're teaching whatever 5 to 7 people. I used to have like classes that I ran daily, and it was very small. But now it's full, and it's extraordinary, and it feels very rich.
And that sangha, that community, is something you've built over a long time, and now all these teachers are here because of you. So it's really special.
It is. It's that thing of I was very alone with no ties, and I love that. And I think part of the work of the yoga that it's had on me is this building of life around me now, and I get to witness it all come back into the space. It's hard to find words to describe how special it is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
If these conversations are inspiring you to take your yoga practice that little bit further or more seriously, then you should come and join my online membership. From just £20 a month, you'll get access to 4 live weekly classes, plus all the recordings and over 50 hours of on-demand yoga classes. Different lengths, different styles, something to suit everyone, something that you can fit into your schedule. It's literally designed for people who are busy and struggle to find the time to create that consistency. The best bit is we have a WhatsApp community group to keep each other accountable and for you to feed back what you're working on so that all the content is created based on what you really need. You can find out more at www.christy-knight.com/members, or you can join the free WhatsApp community at the link in my Instagram bio. Hope to see you there. So with this practice, which has shaped and is now your life, work, personal, my aim in this podcast is really to help people understand the depth of this practice. And so often we see it as a sort of 60-minute go into your yoga studio and practice, physical practice, and then we leave the yoga mat, and that is how a lot of us come into the practice. But what I want to start to seed is maybe these ideas or intentions of how a yoga practice can be such a more rich experience than just that. So how has your relationship to the practice of yoga evolved over time?
My gosh.
Big question, I know.
Yeah. I think so I've been teaching for 15 years, and I think, practicing for longer than that, but I think the first probably 10 years of practice was just affirming the train tracks, just solidifying the path. Not the path even, but the grooves that I need to stay on in order not to wobble too right or wobble too left. And that in many ways was physical, like the physical thing of showing up to the studio. I remember actually when I lived in Australia for a bit and I started doing a lot of self-practice, and I realized how unmotivated I was not having a studio and friends to go see at the studio. And I remember reflecting, thinking, wow, so much of my doing yoga has to do with these external checks.
Conditions.
Yeah, just I get to see friends, and then we're going to get coffee afterwards, and it makes me feel good. And you take a lot of this stuff away, and it's just you and the mat, and no one's watching you, and no one's affirming your form or giving you that feel-good adjustment or spritzing the lavender. And you're like, oh man, just coming and practicing on my own is so hard. And that was a lot of the first kind of beginning years of my practice, I think, really establishing these deep grooves inside of myself that no matter how good things are in my life now or how bad things are in my life, that I always come back to the mat, regardless. And I think once that is in place, that relationship is unquestionable. And I think for a long time it was the only thing I'd committed to, which is big. Because my commitment anxiety was like, woo! So yoga was like my first big commitment, my first kind of marriage. And once that was in place, and actually once I created some other stability in my life as well, which came hand in hand, because I think we're working with the earth element so much when we first begin to practice. We're dealing with our physical body, our connection to our physical body, and inevitably things around safety, home, tribe, all of these things will come up. And then if you work with them, often, and I see this in my community, people start to then solidify those things and work with those things and, for lack of a better word, heal those wounds. And I was doing the same. And I think now that I've built more stability and connection to my body, but also a stronger sense of home and safety, my practice can finally begin to expand out. And my work as a teacher can go further out as well and become more meaningful. So I think it's less, I think my practice and my teaching is far less self-centered. The physical thing is there and it's always going to be there because it's like brushing your teeth. You just get up, you just do that thing. It reminds you what you're doing. It helps you establish your connection to your values, to your heart. You stay on track. You get up in the morning, you're like, what's important to me? Because especially in a city like London, there's a million things pulling you in a million different directions saying, I'm important. So the yoga practice, practicing every morning, is to remember what is important to you. And then for me now, the work is a really beyond the mat. And high yoga is a part of that, is how can we impact people in a meaningful way through the training. But I'm also looking at how I am with my family and with my friends and with my community and with the planet. But I think to be able to become more conscious of these, in a way, external things requires first to have a solid foundation. As my partner likes to say, bread before morals. So I think that's how my practice has really evolved, is that now I'm looking at, okay, I have the privilege of doing this practice the way that I do it. And so what am I doing with that privilege? You know, and what am I doing with everything that I've been so lucky to gain from this practice? And how am I sharing it with others? And what imprint am I leaving on this earth? Also, as I get older, and I'm not that old, but I do think about death a lot. So that's become a huge part of my practice, because in yoga, death is a huge part of it. It's cyclical.
I actually had a question which I was going to ask you, which I've asked a couple of people on this podcast, and I think it's a very personal idea of what this answer is. What would you say is the ultimate goal of yoga? Because you can draw from obviously different ancient texts which say this is the goal, this is the goal, this is the goal. But for you, what do you define that as?
It's going to sound very woo-woo, so I'm just going to preface it with that, but just learning to love. I think for some reason that is hard for us humans. And self-love and loving others and being loving and accepting love. But to me, that is the goal of yoga. And I think that love, that kind of connection to love, comes through stillness, or it can come in many ways. But I think for us as yogis, both the path and the goal, if there is such a thing, is stillness.
Yeah.
Because I think when in stillness, the fluctuations of the mind cease, and all of the things that are in the way of love.
Yeah. I don't think it sounds woo-woo, I think it sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something like very yogic philosophy led, which people might be like, what?
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful goal to have.
I also think that I've met in my life now lots of wonderful human beings who don't necessarily engage in asana or the practices that we do in the shala and Kapalabhati and Nadi Shodhana and pranayama. But in my understanding of a yogi, are true yogis. And it's about the way that they carry themselves in the world, the vulnerability with which they approach people and situations, and the openness, and I want to say the activism, the care, the action. And I can go, okay, yeah, you don't get up with me in the morning to sit in the shala, but I would define you as a yogi. Not everyone would, because I know we have strict ideas about what a yogi is, but at the same time in the West we label ourselves sometimes as yogis, and I think it's questionable.
Yeah.
It's a big thing to say I'm a yogi.
It's very hard to also live a yogic lifestyle when you are living in a city like London, where the presence, the awareness is really difficult, because there's, like you said, 101 things pulling your distraction, your attention, that actually for me, I find it's that focus and that ability to really be present, which is what it continues to teach me, the practice all the time, because it's something I struggle with, is a constant, and my practice constantly reminds me, like, stay here, because so often we're just not even aware that we're not aware.
Completely.
We're doing one thing and we're thinking about 5 other things at once. And that is, something that all of these practices that are under this yoga umbrella can bring you into. Yeah, and even to be a yogi, I haven't thought about this much, and so I'm processing as I speak, but I'm like, am I a yogi? I think I just practice and teach yoga. I think to say I'm a yogi is like a big statement, because it implies a certain level of commitment that I'm not sure we're able to give in a busy city like London, you know, and also if we have a domestic life and other commitments and stuff like that. But for sure,
yeah, food for thought.
Yeah, the other day when we were in the shala, so I guess the course that we're on now is this 300-hour teacher training, which some people say it's an advanced teacher training. You know, it's the next big teacher training that you do after your first 200-hour.
Call it like the PhD of yoga. There's nothing next. Yeah, you can do small little things afterwards. Most teachers who then do a 300-hour training might just end up teaching trainings themselves. Yeah.
So you said something the other day, which is in our little manual, that the advanced practice is an inside job, which I just loved. And I thought it was a really beautiful starting point for a conversation on this podcast, because I do think a lot of people come to the mat to move their body and they might feel a deeper shift, but not necessarily understand or have the language to explain or feel what's happening. And so I love this idea of it being, it's an inside job, not a let's just move and feel. Can you like elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yeah, so, yeah, the yoga practice is an inside job. It's really kind of simple way to break that down. Perhaps someone who's just starting out yoga and how they might think of it is that you can be someone who gets onto the mat for the first time and have a very advanced practice in that moment, as in you get into the postures and your body might not be supple and it might feel really challenging and you might not be able to do some of the postures and you might be shaking a little bit and struggling, but inside you're breathing and you're paying attention and you're noticing and you're trying to stay connected to the breath and you're trying to stay grounded in your body. And when the body says, this is an edge, you might back gently off a little bit. And all of that is blanketed by Ahimsa, this kind of internal energy of non-violence, non-harm, also in the way that you speak to yourself. Whereas there might be someone next to you who is demonstrating and performing all of the postures very beautifully. And they're putting their foot behind their head. And their face might even be calm and neutral. I do feel like yogis develop poker faces and asana. We learn to just have this stoic look for the gram photo in our meditation. And they're doing all the postures and everything looks stunning from the outside, but inside they're having a very shit time and they're being really hard on themselves and really critical and really aggressive and really violent. And when their body hits an edge, they might ignore it and push beyond. They might be holding their breath at times, might not be visible, but just to strain and catch that foot.
Pushing through that edge.
Pushing through, yeah. But also the kind of internal grasping for the postures. And I would argue that they're moving away from the yoga and not having a very advanced practice.
I really love that. So often people are like, oh, I can't come to yoga, I'm not flexible enough. The image that a lot of people see of yoga as, oh, it's stretching and I'm not very supple, so therefore I can't do it. So I thought that was a really beautiful explanation.
Yeah.
And just to touch back, you said this idea of ahimsa or non-violence. For someone who's listening to the podcast who isn't sure what that means or how that fits into yoga.
Yeah, so ahimsa is one of the kind of guiding principles for yogis. There are many. We don't try and get everything perfectly, but ahimsa is a foundational one. So it's a wonderful, if we have no understanding of yogic philosophy, it's a wonderful place to start, and you can sit with that one for many years and keep coming back to it. Just this idea of non-violence, non-harm, and every single day in all of our communication and all of our interactions and the food that we choose to eat and how we choose to eat it, the companies that we decide to invest our money into by purchasing their products, who we vote for, all of these are ways, small and big, in which we can practice non-violence, non-harm. And it's a really direct way to take the practice off the mat into the informal setting where it's so difficult, but really important, especially I think now, because we see, we see the yoga community, I think, a bit complacent, I think, in the practice actually of ahimsa and nonviolence.
And I guess that's a nice opening or segue into where I want to go next, which is, this is like if we run through the 8 limbs, that is the first one where, like you said, you can start to bring your practice off the mat. But for you, when you're off the mat, is there any other of the yoga principles, whether it be from the 8 limbs or outside, that you feel you regularly come back to inform your life. Of course, there's a general awareness of them all and of like, oh, maybe we're trying to practice a lot of them all the time. But is there anything that is really important to you in your life that you come back to or that you hold close as an idea?
Well, Ahimsa is from the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is a foundational text in most trainings. But over the years, I realized it's not a text that like deeply resonates with me actually. And I think the Gita is another text, and without going into it too deeply.
Yeah, we'd be here for hours.
Yes. There's a foundational idea in the Gita that yoga is action, skillful action. And I think that this is something I'm really trying for in my practice. I don't think this word comes up in any of the yogic texts. Maybe Christian can help me. But I'm really trying to be more brave. I'm really trying to be more brave. I think I see it lacking in the world, and sometimes I feel frustrated. I'm like, why aren't we more brave? And then I notice all the times that I kind of whimper and don't use my voice, or don't actually engage in like active ahimsa because I'm worried about not being liked. I think yoga teachers, it's like a disease. We worry about imposter syndrome. It's a really big one. It comes up in all the trainings, and it comes up with my mentees. And I think we really worry, we want to be liked, which is difficult when you're a teacher, because often you'll have to ask things of your students which might frustrate them or upset them. But I think in the world as well, I think, I'm trying to be brave, and that is a practice for me. It's continuous, like dipping my feet in and then sitting without feeling, because it brings up a lot of fear.
Of course.
Yeah.
So in the Gita, this idea of yoga in action, I'm not going to go like too deep into the context because it's such a deeply long and profound text, but this idea of action is acting for what you believe in, acting through, in what way? How do you see it?
Acting in line with your Dharma, so this is where it gets really complicated. It could be a whole podcast. So I think one of the first steps is understanding what your Dharma is in the world, which is where a lot of us get stuck. So like, what is my purpose, my why?
And then the action is in line with that.
In line with that, yeah. And I think a lot of it gets stuck in action or doing someone else's Dharma.
Do you feel like the practices of yoga, whether it be asana, whether it be the pranayama, the breath, the meditation, the sitting with things, the stillness, do you feel like those are effective tools in maybe helping someone come back to that, what actually is your Dharma, what is your purpose?
Completely.
Because I do.
Yeah, I also sometimes think that obviously in this training, for example, we talk about these texts a lot, and as teachers we get really invested in this sort of study, but I think sometimes this information can become not an obstacle, but we can get too heady. I've definitely met scholars who know all the yogic texts but aren't necessarily practicing any yoga, if that makes sense. So that's why I love the application of these tools of asana, pranayama, meditation, because often without the kind of understanding, the deeper intellectual understanding of these philosophical texts, I think when we do the practice, the things that are meant for us come to us, the information that we need comes to us. And I think for someone who's trying to figure out their Dharma, can probably get a lot more answers in the stillness that these practices can bring if you're committed, rather than sitting there and thinking about, what is my purpose?
What am I going to do?
Yeah, because it's hard to solve problems of the mind with the mind. And what happens with these practices is that you get these little moments of void where the mind is just a bit quiet, and that's when those answers might appear. It's tricky though, because then if you're like come to me.
Where's it coming?
Where is it coming? Then it also doesn't often come. So it's, then you have surrender, but it's worth it. I think it's good to do them without an agenda.
Yeah.
But I think if you ask around, people will say that through these practices, you do get a lot of answers. But I think it's important to do them not seeking answers, but just like brushing your teeth. Just do it for the sake of doing it. Yeah.
So with this idea of action, we spoke about this lightly the other day, this idea of like yoga and activism, the context that we find ourselves in, not in this tiny paradise island. I guess this island has its issues as well, but the world context in October 2025 that we find ourselves in is a really hard place.
Yeah.
Around the world, even where we are in the UK, here, there's just a lot of crazy stuff happening. Do you feel like yoga and activism, there's a correlation or there is a duty there?
I mean, you wouldn't think it.
Yeah.
I think so. But if you look at our community, you wouldn't really think it.
Yeah.
Not to discredit all the wonderful teachers who engage in activism, but there's lots of people who practice and teach yoga who are really sort of violently neutral on everything. And I think, I personally, I don't think that aligns with what I've understood yoga to be. But I also know that coming to understand yoga is a different path for everyone, and people have so many different interpretations of what it is. And I've heard people go, oh, for me, it's just a little bit of movement and stretching, and maybe call it by some other name. But yeah, I also think that yoga aside, we just ought to care as human beings about things that are happening around us, even if it's not happening directly to us. So just like yoga aside, but obviously with the principles of yoga and what yoga is meant to be about, or how I define the ultimate goal of yoga, love. I think almost however you define it, for me it feels undeniable that we should care and bring action behind that care. Yeah, but these things are tricky, and like you mentioned, this island, there's lots of issues on this island as well. And me and Christian have definitely sat with the complexity of bringing tourism here and our carbon footprint. And, we have conversations with you guys about that. And so we've also done what we could prior to coming here to support some organizations financially to try and offset being here. It's tricky. It's such a complex thing. I spent an hour in the kitchen yesterday talking to Lena, who's local, about just the development of the land here and how the land gets basically in a roundabout way bought out by Westerners, and it's just
walking around the island, I imagine, is quite different now to when you were here 10 years ago.
Yeah,
lots of big swimming
very
pools,
chic hotels, which isn't a problem in and of itself. How we build on the land, I think, if you just looked at the recent rains in Bali, huge floods, and that's because people are building, not taking into consideration how they're building. That land naturally absorbs the water, but if you cover it in concrete and you don't take into consideration where the water flows,
there's going to be a problem.
There's going to be a problem. Yeah. I think it's always, this comes back to the Ahimsa thing. I think everything we do, we have a responsibility to ask ourselves, not just how can I not be violent and create harm, but how can I help?
Yeah.
And we can't do everything. We can't help everyone. But I think we often can do a lot more than we feel we can.
Yeah.
I think we've been conditioned to feel disempowered and separate from each other, and so therefore what can little old me do?
Everyone's voices important.
Wow.
Mona, on the mornings when you wake up and you're tired and you haven't had a great sleep and it's not easy to roll out the mat and move your body, what other ways do you connect with the practice in that environment? I don't mean like the ahimsa of off the mat and how you relate to the world and people. I mean like when you're having one of those days, weeks, months where everything just feels sticky and heavy and you feel disconnected from like, I don't want to roll out my mat and practice asana. How can we keep showing up for ourselves in that space?
What's interesting for me, because of the phase of life I'm in, I'm almost always wanting to roll out my mat if I can, if my family will allow me. Not necessarily to do something rigorous, but just to have a little wiggle around and feel into the body. I've also gone through lots of changes in my body in the last 2 years, and where it hasn't always been easy to get back onto the mat because things don't feel the same. Yeah, I just keep going because, first of all, it is just going to get, at some point, you're going to peak, and then it's just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make the yoga any less. It doesn't
better
make you,
or worse.
Yeah, it doesn't make you any less of a yogi just because things don't feel good, and things will start to feel creaky, and my older friends tell me.
Yeah.
And I think not having these strong expectations of how things ought to feel, softening that a little bit where we can. Of course we all do it. Oh, back in the day I used to be able to do this and that. But again, as we go on, and may we go on until we're old and creaky, things will feel worse. And I think if we expand also our practice out, we'll feel less attached to this kind of getting onto the mat.
I love the story that you shared yesterday about the Nidra, about was it your friend or you who were teaching the older people?
Yeah. My friend, not me.
Yeah, because when we are older and we can't flow around on the mat, there's still so many other ways to go and sit down and have a practice that aren't just warrior 1, warrior 2, trikonasana. So yeah, would you mind just sharing that story?
Yes. So Yoga Nidra essentially means yogic sleep. And it doesn't require anything of you except to lie down and soften and listen.
It's great, by the way.
And try and stay awake. And it is a practice, so it requires... Sometimes people do Yoga Nidra once and they say, oh, I've done Yoga Nidra, but just like all the other tools, it requires continued practice. But it's so great for people who are dealing with recovering from surgery or dealing with injuries, or just their bodies are getting older and these shapes are not possible for whatever reason. But it's great for everybody. It's great for us who just need to downregulate, and it's great for all able-bodied people as well. And you can go really deep. You can go really deep, and it requires very little of you. The only thing I would say is if you do a Yoga Nidra, I would do it with someone that you trust, or if you do, because there are recorded Yoga Nidras online, I would always just listen to them first, like when you're cooking or something, just to see what's being said.
Yeah.
Because it goes quite deep. These words land deeply. So that's the only thing I would say. But there's also lovely Yoga Nidras that you can do at home that are recorded. But there's great value in showing up in community and like lying down together and having your teacher tuck you in and to make sure you're comfy and then guide you through it in person. But not everyone gets that luxury. And I know lots of people do Yoga Nidra at home with the recording.
Yeah, I've always done it at home on whether it's Spotify or SoundCloud or whatever. But then we did it yesterday with you in an environment we're all together, and it was like a totally different experience. And it was much longer. We had an full hour, rather than just 15 minutes before I go to bed or whatever. If anyone is interested in another style of yoga where it's not so active, or you're in a time where it's feeling all a bit sticky, I would definitely say it's a beautiful one to try.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing to try. And also I think, just coming back to what you were asking me before, I think something we really need to honor is the season that we are in. Season in our life, and we might cycle through again, but I think sometimes when we're in a cooler season, we might feel resistance, and that just creates further suffering, I think. That's something I've been learning again with the changes in my body in the last 2 years and being in a different phase of my life. Like, of course my physical practice is going to look different. Yeah. And that's okay. But I say that fully admitting that there were moments when I was like, but practicing that acceptance of those seasons as they come is part of the work. And I think the more we practice it, the easier it gets. Yeah.
Amazing. So Mona, if anyone listening to this podcast has resonated or enjoyed how we've been chatting about this practice, I always like to ask every guest what their favorite books or podcasts or pieces of educational content that you either come back to or that you share with people who are looking to dive deeper into their yoga practice are? And I know you've probably spent a long time writing course lists, so I know you have a very long list of books that you'd recommend, but what are the top few books or resources you would share?
I love Donna Farah's Bringing Yoga to Life. I read a lot from it in class. Like I just always, whenever I lose inspiration, I always just come back to it. She's got an incredible way of using words to explain like the more intricate, nuanced parts of yoga that we need to be thinking about when we practice physically. So especially for teachers that are trying to weave philosophy into their class and these more nuanced aspects into class, I think that's a great book. And other books of hers as well. Stephen Cope is one of my favorite yoga authors. The Great Work of Your Life. It's an amazing text on Dharma and this kind of concept of Dharma from the Gita that we were talking about. So if you want someone to gently, because the Gita isn't something that you just read, at least it wasn't for me.
Yeah, it's intense.
You need guidance, you need commentary.
Yeah.
And then Ranji Roy's Yoga as Pilgrimage is probably one of my favorite texts on the Sutras, if you want a little bit of kind of guidance around those. A really beautiful book. Yeah, those are the three that are coming to mind.
Nice.
There's so many good books out there.
I know, there's so many, but we'll share those three in the commentary below for anyone who wants to dive into those. Picture this, an extended break in beautiful natural surroundings where you get to practice yoga twice a day, a morning energizing flow and an evening more restorative practice like yin or meditation. 3 meals daily where we'll come together around a large table full of delicious, healthy, nourishing food and lots of other activities to not only connect you with other like-minded people, but also to bring you more deeper into connection with yourself. If you're in need of a break that feels a little bit more intentional, then come on retreat with Andy and I. We have a full schedule of retreats coming up, and you can find them all on my website at www.christy-knight.com/yoga. I hope to see you there. So we're going to move on to the last part of this podcast. Time flies.
Negroni?
Which I am... Surprise! Surprise! Negroni and nibbles. Sadly not. Didn't bring my Campari in my suitcase. But I call this part Final Flow, and it's just like quick fire. Just don't overthink it. It's not even too much about yoga. Mona, beach holiday or mountain retreat?
Beach holiday. Yeah.
Me too. Cool. What's your go-to comfort activity on a rainy day?
Yoga. Like that's literally, I was like, oh, it's raining. Let's just do some yoga. But reading for sure. Yeah. Just alone time, actually. Yeah, alone time.
So
reading.
sacred to get back into bed with a book. It's one of my favorite things to do ever. I never get time to, but when I do,
I never do that anymore.
So good. Yeah. What's your favorite scent or smell?
I just love like the smell of coffee, or in the city when it has poured after being hot for a long time. Do you know what I'm talking about?
There's a name for that. Do you know it?
No.
Petrichor.
Stop it. Petrichor.
Petrichor. It's the name of my boyfriend's didgeridoo.
Stop.
I know it, yeah.
It's an amazing
Because like, he always called it petrichor, and I was like, what is that? And it's the smell of the earth after it rains.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
I love that.
Okay, last one. What's a yoga asana that you love to hate?
I've gone through like waves. I used to hate Bird of Paradise. Something would come up for me. It was like visceral, but it's gone away now.
Okay.
I don't hate, I used to be very open in my backbending, and it's not that I hate it, but it's something I'm dealing with, is accepting that my front body has become really different and a bit closed, and gently working through that. It's that thing of being able to do something at some point and be like, yeah, foot on head, and now...
And I love this idea that they always all feel different.
Yes.
You can be in one stretch one day, and I always say that in my classes, don't think that you're going to do it the same way that you did it. Yes, it's going to feel different, and that's like a part of it, because we think like, oh, cool, I can do that now.
Yeah.
I can always go that deep. No, it's going to depend what you've eaten, how you feel, like what conversations you've had that day, and your body might be like, not today.
And there are definitely poses that I have done like twice, like in their, what we think of them to be complete, whatever that means. But done them twice at some stage in my life, thinking that now that's in my toolbox.
Yeah.
Like, no, never again.
It's a good lesson for off the mat as well.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tick, done.
Yeah. When the ego's like, but I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a continuous journey.
It is weird how we want to hoard postures, accumulate postures. Yeah.
It is. I think it speaks a lot to the environment that we live in and the capitalist,
colonial
acquiring stuff. Yeah, we've done that. Tick.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Mona, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's been nice.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I love the way you speak about the practice. I love the way you openly share, and I'm very inspired by you. So it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. Hope you've enjoyed it too.
Thanks for my coconut.
You're very welcome.
For those of you listening, the side story is that I requested this coconut and Christy had to borrow a bike and rush off. You get it from me. I feel like a diva.
That's okay. It's the least I can do.
Thank you so much. But
I'm sorry that there was no Negroni next time.
No, we can do it when we're back in a big city. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed listening to today's episode with Mona, that conversation that was full of so much richness, so many little gems that you can start to take off the mat with you, then I would really appreciate if you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button, giving us a little comment, maybe letting us know which part of the podcast you resonated most with. Or perhaps if you really enjoyed it, you could share it with a friend or a family member that you think might find some of that information helpful. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I hope to see you in next week's episode. Thank you.